Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be walking you through my whole journey and process of creating my tabletop role-playing game, Skatepocalypse. First we have to kind of see where it all started. One night I was just in my room rewatching this Joffy episode until Nathan said something as a one-off joke. They were just being silly, but it gave me a burst of inspiration.
Are the horsemen of the apocalypse like half horse, half man? Is that what we're in this interpretation?
No, I thought they were just men on horse.
Okay, but what about the horse?
They're just normal men.
I hope they put the 4 horsemen in Skate Season 2.
That'd be cool.
The 4 skatemen.
The 4 skatemen of the Skatepocalypse.
Say that again?
Because I'd been playing a lot of tabletop games like Monster of the Week by Michael Sands, there was a lot of ideas already going around in my head, because I'd been messing around with making my own games for a while now. This gave me a huge amount of inspiration. I let the idea kind of sit and bake in my head, just brainstorming for a few days before I started writing anything down. Part of it was because I wasn't sure at the start how I was going to implement the skating mechanics and the apocalypse stuff without getting all that gritty realism that I don't always enjoy. It can definitely be very fun in games, but it's not what I wanted off the bat. So the night of June 26th, 2025, I just started writing everything down, pen to paper, coming up with more ideas. There's more keyboard to document, but who cares? It's the same thing. I just had to start writing everything down so that I could mush all of the mechanics and ideas together into one cohesive part. Because it was basically midnight when I started, everything was kind of incoherent, not working well together, just a bunch of disconnected, disparate pieces that I didn't know what to do with. I was getting a little discouraged, and I just chose to go to bed and work on it tomorrow. I worked on version 1 for about a week or so, maybe a little bit more. It's over a year ago, so I don't fully remember. But what I do know, because I actually have it written down and it's ingrained into my brain, is what I started with. The stats, the conditions, and the skating mechanics, none of which originally worked together at all. In the beginning, I was very focused on keeping it a powered by the apocalypse system, but I didn't really know how all of them worked, and I also really wanted it to be my own unique system, something that I created myself, so I chose to just kind of abandon that and work from the ground up. At the time, it didn't feel like a great idea to completely abandon making it a powered by the apocalypse system, because it ended up making me have to completely redo version 1, and then I ended up doing... I kept most of version 1 when I moved into making version 2, like I kept the stats, style, know-how, agility, tough, and energy. I mostly kept the way you assign your stats. I did tweak it a little bit, of course. I moved the crashes and combos skating mechanic to be more point-based than it is dice-based, because I didn't really like how it was. It used to be much more similar to the Daggerheart Vanish mechanic, which is cool now that I know that. The HP and death mechanics, that I called stress, were probably the most disconnected part of the system, because they really only connected to the poorly built combat that was not fleshed out yet at all, because items weren't fleshed out, action economy wasn't made yet. And the way I fixed this was by originally connecting it to the conditions mechanics, and then eventually by connecting it directly back to the stats by you adding your tough, which also gave players more incentive to balance out their stats when assigning your traits. Whereas before you might just want to base it off of what your archetype is and maybe what kind of character you want to play, which is also a very good thing, and that's originally what I wanted to do. That's why nothing was built out correctly. But that's not good. You actually have to have the mechanics that back up your story, because otherwise you might as well just be writing a book. The original moves and actions were not built out. It was a very short list that was also very unclear. I didn't really know what I was doing with it. It was just there. There was ways to attack and help your other players. There wasn't even originally a movement system, like locomotion-wise, which defeats the whole purpose of having a skating system if you can't move. If there's no way to get around in a fight, why do you have a skateboard if you're not using it? That's why I fixed it. Actually bringing in the apocalypse part of Skatepocalypse, because I can't just focus on the skate. What do you do in Skatepocalypse if there's no apocalypse? That's kind of where the gear and item stuff comes in, which again wasn't well done originally, but moving into version 2 made everything a lot better. It actually took me until version 1.2.1 to even add the speed and movement mechanics, but from 1.2.1 up until about 1.2.5 or 4, I was working on the gear, making sure all of the items and stuff actually interacted with the rest of the game, what items were supposed to do in general, and all of that. Now, I'm saying a lot of version numbers and stuff. This is a personal changelog set that I made for myself, partially so that I could make these videos, but also so that I could look back on what I've done so far and find out why I changed things and what I've changed. I think I originally took the idea from the XP to level 3 Fallout tabletop role-playing game, which I don't think they actually have change logs, but I know they have version numbers. I don't remember off the top of my head. Pretty much since the beginning, before I even fully started writing everything down, I was talking to my friends at my local RPG club about the game I'd been working on, all my ideas and stuff, what I wanted to do, and all of them seemed fairly interested, and we eventually agreed to schedule a playtest for the game this past February. This was the club's first playtest of a game in development, so we didn't really fully know what to expect, so we just played it like any other game. It was this same RPG club that helped me gather more and more inspiration for what to build this game and make this game based off of. If you have your own local RPG club, I suggest definitely look into it. Also just play more games, play more variations of games if you want to start making your own. It's a really good way to find out how other people go about doing various things. Different systems go about different mechanics in different ways. D&D has its own HP system. Monster of the Week and other powered by the Apocalypse games have its own HP system. Lancer, as an example, again, has a very different HP system from both. Everything has its own purpose in its own system. Find out how other games do different things, and then you get inspiration for your own stuff. Now back to what actually happened in the... For the playtest, we used version 1.3.0, which is the beta version of Skatepocalypse that I actually made this one specifically for testing. The beta version is fairly different from the current 1.4.4, mostly because of this playtest, and also based on a few tweaks and changes I've made within the past 6 months. The way the club is structured, we basically do 2 weeks of prep, and then we actually do 2 weeks of gameplay. So I had 2 full weeks, almost 3, to completely fix the game before we fully started playing, based on various inputs we had during character creation and actual prep and learning the game. For the playtest, there was originally going to be 8 of us, 7 players and 1 GM. I was not going to be the GM. I was partially going to be a player because one of my friends wanted to be the GM, but also because it's good to find out how somebody might try to handle and moderate and GM, Game Master, your system while being new to it. If somebody can't figure it out, there's a problem. That friend also came up with an amazing story idea. Now I say 8, originally 7 players, because one of my friends wasn't actually able to make it, but he helped a lot in changing the system because he made me realize I never even added a rope item. How did I forget that? That's one of the first things in every game's starting gear. It's not even an option originally, until he didn't really want anything on the starting item list, and then just said, is there maybe a rope item I could pick? And right then and there, I felt so crazy. Why did I think of a rope item? I know it's not that big of a deal, but it shows what kind of oversights you can really make when you're just in your own head making this game, and how much a playtest can actually help, even with the smallest details. stats. Now, I don't have everybody's character sheets and stats from the playtest, but I do have generally what our characters were.
The poser, Tuna Standalone, file photo, wields 7 kunai, possesses a skateboard and a moped. Special ability, I know what I'm doing. Allows for automatic success with a consequence once per rest. Other details can be found on the sheet presented. The bully, Chad, your classic tough guy. Special ability, anger management issues. Possesses greater strength and resistance to injury. File photo. Other details can be found on the sheet presented. An error has occurred in which Chad's preferred mount is listed as a skateboard. This is incorrect. Chad prefers the scooter, as it can also be used to attack. The Shredder, Honey Talk. No, not that Shredder. However, they're a stylish trick skater. Special feature, I know a spot. Honey Talk has a home base of sorts that is also repurposed as a practice area. Other details can be found on the sheet presented. The Dramatic, Jack the Blaquette, ready for the beaches of California with his surfing longboard and saxophone in hand. Special ability, Death Scene, can convincingly play dead. Though he might be a little lost, he is prepared for anything. Jack Thie's player could not make it to the playtest. This means he is not present for our story. The Punk, Scrote, has lots of brain damage and memory loss. Often writes songs with his hurdy-gurdy. Special abilities, studded leather and improvised defense. Can return the damage of any hit and is quite adept with improvised arms. File photo and further details provided. The Normie, Keela Baby Bambino, wine-obsessed mobwife who drives a large van. Special ability, in plain sight, can perfectly hide in a crowd of people. No photo available, more details provided. The Creature, Robin Kennedy, a fully conscious zombie and wasteland wanderer. Special abilities, otherworldly resilience and enhanced physiology. Resistant to infections and physical stress, and does not require oxygen to breathe. No photo available, more details provided.
The setting for the playtest is an alternate Earth that's kind of a reoccurring setting for the RPG club called Para-Earth, which will likely appear in later videos. More specifically, it is an alternate zombie apocalypse timeline taking place in 2040, about 6 months into the apocalypse, and we are in Essex County, New Jersey. The story opens at a Trader Joe's just north of Newark, where various other NPC groups and our party have taken shelter. It's kind of a sanctuary where everybody stays to their own aisles. We got the condiment aisle for some reason. We ended up having to leave sooner than expected in a little bit more of a violent way because a fight broke out as one of our party members, Keela, attempted to take something from the spirits aisle. Eventually, due to my character's actions, the building and some of our enemies caught on fire, and we had to get out of there even faster than before, and Keela grabbed her van, which is one of the options for, instead of taking skates, you can take a car or a van or a motorcycle. Keela then rammed said van into the building, allowing us to get away, but also allowing some zombies into the building in the process, which we had to run away from. Anyway, Robin and Tuna got away on Tuna's moped, catching up with everybody else who was in the van. One of the zombies got recognized by either Scrote or Chad. I do not remember who it was, but they recognized them as a survival influencer person who actually had a bunker fairly nearby where we were. We get to the pretty much empty mansion, and Scrote, for some reason, had an epiphany that, wait, this was his house, and the other guy just lived here in the basement. However, he did not know the combination to the vault or anything, the bunker, which we just got past that by doing a bunch of fun tricks, which was a cool puzzle for us to figure out. And I really like how the GM integrated that into the story of the game. It was a very good execution, I feel like. All of this crazy drama and stuff in the playtest, and all of the wacky ways people figured out how to use the mechanics. Not only was it very entertaining and interesting to see as the game designer, but also very eye-opening, seeing what didn't really have a system in place in the game, really what I was missing, some of the small oversights, like not only not having the rope item for Jackathie, but also that player also wanted some other options for the items that were already in the game that I didn't think about before, like beach clothes wasn't an option. Something that's very easily flavorable, and the clothing items don't really have much of a mechanical use anyway, so you really don't have to put much there, but it's still a good way to inspire creativity when there's a longer list there. It also made me realize a lot of the damage thresholds for various items were kind of funky. This was a mechanic I had the idea for from the very beginning, where various items can take various amount of damage and breaks and stuff before they are completely useless. Like rations and food, for example, can really only suffer one break before it's not edible anymore. You don't have it. Also, the fact that one of the only people that had to use the drive move wasn't equipped for it wasn't very good. I realized a lot of the move options and the way they connected back to the stats were very limiting, and I wanted to be more of an open play, a fun way to be more and more creative with the story of the game and what your character can do. Among a lot of these other things, inventory got pointed out as a big problem to me when it's just too simple. You only have horizontal lines to write what your items are and boxes to denote their type and how much damage they can take. There's not like a fun way to keep track of your inventory there. It feels like you're just gonna have it written down and then not look back at it later. So I had to come up with a way to fix that. Combat was also a big problem. It was kind of boring. It was a big drag. Even though it went faster than something like D&D would, it was definitely not as exciting as it could be, not as invigorating. It was really just, I do this one thing and I go away. It's just hit and run, basically, which is kind of a good way to do it when there's a high chance of dying, but there's not that high chance of death in this game until maybe, like, you're doing a big combat. When it's a zombie apocalypse, there's not that much damage they can do. Lastly, in the game with the scenario of the theft of alcoholic beverages, it's probably how I can say that, made me realize there wasn't really rules for that, and we kind of had to come up with them on the fly. Not the theft part, but the alcohol part. Later on, I realized I didn't fully want to keep that in the core of the game, so I kind of postponed it. But all of these issues that got pointed out to me during the playtest and afterwards during a discussion, which is always something you should have after a playtest, not only should people be pointing out to you while you're playing, sometimes they might not realize it until later. It's always good to directly ask your players in the playtest, what is something that you found difficult and how would you change it? But after the discussion, once I went home, I fixed it again. Part of this second big update actually happened just before the second session of the playtest with version 1.3.2. It was more or less just to add a leveling system that wasn't in place before because I wasn't really sure how I would go about it, but it made it more fun and more interactive with our characters if we had a leveling system in place. The way I ended up doing the leveling system was by allowing players to pick an additional special move from their archetype's pool of about 4, and by allowing players to up one of their stats by 1 per level. So I realized I needed to come up with way more abilities, and I've been working on that in the latest version 1.4.4, but that is after the big update, where I kind of just skipped the rest of the 1.3.x versions in favor of just moving straight into a larger rebuild of the system at 1.4.0. Version 1.4.0 is when I implemented all of the suggestions from the playtest discussion, like the better turns, where instead you take 2 moves instead of 1 and a dash, reworking the driving and piloting system so that more variations in character builds could actually use the move, as well as making pre-made NPC and enemy stat blocks. I don't know where those went. I looked through some of my files and stuff, and I can't find them, so I'm gonna have to work on it again. But it should be fairly easy based on what I remember doing. I did have to postpone working on some of the things, more just to focus on one thing at a time, especially while school was going on, so that my schedule wasn't too full. However, when I do postpone working on something, I try to leave myself a note that's like, hey, work on this later, maybe revisit this thing later. Like the inventory system, I did outline it a little bit, but I did not work on it, so version 1.4, I left myself a note, work on this later. Make sure you rework the character sheets when you're done with the inventory system. Make sure you actually finish working on the NPC stat blocks, which I didn't do. At the time, I was more focused on fixing the combat and damaging mechanics, so I completely gutted the old weapon system, I allowed vehicles to attack, and I started work on a very complex materials system for really no reason. It was to assign damage thresholds to inanimate objects that weren't items and buildings and stuff, but I didn't like how this was pushing the game to a very gritty realism type thing, so I kind of scrapped it. It was the same kind of thing for what I called the inebriated condition that could apply to most substances in games where you didn't really need to keep track of it. It was just something that could happen if needed, but that's also why I left it more up to the GM and the players to do a ruling on that if needed. I'm not going to put that in the base game. What I put in place of the old weapon system is more akin to what Lancer has, just with a lot less tags. Took me until version 1.4.2 to actually finalize the inventory system to be a pocket-based system where different sizes of items take up a different amount of space. It was originally going to be very similar to a Resident Evil type inventory system, but I did not want it to be that complex, and it really doesn't work in a pen and paper medium. It just makes it annoying and clunky. It's not fun that way, at least for me. In this update, I also worked a little bit on fixing some of the conditions, making them mesh with the rest of the game a little bit more, and finalizing the character sheet, especially after I fixed the inventory system so that I could put it on the character sheet. I made it a more generic sheet so that every archetype could use one sheet, similar to how D&D and stuff does it instead of doing it how Monster of the Week and some of the other Powered by the Apocalypse stuff does with playbooks, where every archetype had their own their own sheet, like I had it before. It just added a lot of clutter and extra paper and printing and stuff, and it was just a little too much. Speaking of paper and printing, version 1.4.3 is when I started working on the second draft of the book, instead of trying to mangle together the new stuff with the old first draft of the book. This is what drafting's for. The old draft is what I printed for the playtest, so it was easier for everybody to look through stuff, and I will get that right now. When I did print out the first draft, I just printed every page front and back, and I hole punched all of the pages so that I could put it in this giant binder. It was just for ease of use so that we could pass this around the table, something physical that I could actually hand the rest of the players for the playtest. It's a good way to actually get people more into the game physically, so that they're more interested in it already. While I was working on the book in version 1.4.3, I also added something we joked about during the playtest of the check your pockets move, which I believe I limited only to once per session, but you basically just roll the dice without adding any bonuses, unless I believe I added an archetype feature, but we'll get into that later, where you just check your pockets for random junk like a paperclip or a wrapper or something, maybe a coin. It can just be random helpful junk in your pockets that could come in handy. Now moving to the current version, 1.4.4, I've only focused on fixing all of the archetypes and their features, trying to flesh out and build on what I have. All of the features are kind of like an open leveling system, somewhat similar to both Lancer and Monster of the Week again, just with some of the features having multiple levels to them, just adding more and more, although making sure every archetype has the exact same amount so that everything is balanced. It's the biggest problem in building your own game is trying to find the balance, making sure nothing is actually objectively better at the same level. In the original, when we playtested, I feel like the creature was probably one of the best because of the abilities that I gave it, which is not why I picked it. I picked it because I wanted to be a silly zombie creature, but I, again, don't want everything to be too much of the same or too different to where something is all the way up here when everything else is just down here. It's not fair and it becomes not fun. If you're trying to build your own, that's going to be probably the biggest time suck other than formatting and actually writing everything out in a way that doesn't just make sense to you in a notes form. In 1.4.4, I also removed the consequence table that had been present since the very beginning because there wasn't really a point for it when the GM should just be trying to help you tell the story and telling you what a consequence for a failure is in the first place. It was just you roll a d8 and you take whatever consequence you roll. It was stifling people's creativity. It doesn't work very well. Just leave the consequences open, especially for a game like this where it is trying to be a balance of narrative and mechanical play. Now, what is my process could very easily be very different from yours. Everybody has their own way of going about these things, but the way I do it is I find something that interests me, something that inspires me, just one little thing, maybe a few, like this is skating in the apocalypse. It's just an amalgam of ideas and concepts. You find your concept, what you kind of want it to be, and then you move into the brainstorming stage. Brainstorming can take a few days, a few weeks, it could even be more than a month. It takes time to do these things, to actually flesh out your ideas. A good way to do it is just brainstorm for a few days to weeks maybe, and just info dump on a piece of paper or on a document. Just make sure you have all of your ideas in one spot, just throw it into a pile, and then once you're done, sort through that pile, pick out the stuff that you don't want, throw it out, and move on to the actual rebuilding stage. This step is probably going to take the absolute longest, just refining and tweaking until you can get it out to at least one group of people to do a playtest. It is better if you can playtest with multiple groups at multiple times, but if you can only get one, that's fine, and just try and get as much information from that playtest as you can. Like I said earlier on, it is probably a good idea if you want to start doing this to find a local group of people that is open to playing a bunch of different games and maybe propose the idea of, hey, would you guys mind playtesting my game? You could even just propose it to your friends. Be like, hey, I've been working on this game. Would you guys want to playtest this with me? The more people you can find to do multiple playtests, the better, because the more information you get to refine your game so that more people will enjoy it, so that you can actually push it out to people everywhere. First off, I am probably going to run through a few more closed playtests of Skatepocalypse before I even push out a draft to you guys. But when I do, there will be a free player PDF and a free GM PDF, most likely on itch.io and maybe DriveThruRPG. I will definitely also probably do a YouTube video or a post about it, just telling you guys, here's where you can find this. Once the full book is out, it is going to be a pay what you can PDF on most likely both itch.io and DriveThruRPG. I'm not fully sure yet. That is going to be fairly far into the future. Maybe just a few months, though. Hopefully, I can get it out to you guys very soon. Now, plans for after release. I do have some ideas for some potential add-ons, which is what all the foreshadowing was about. I have an idea for one titled Difficulty Grit, where there's more rules, some extra stuff if you want to play a more gritty realism type apocalypse game, where you have to pay more attention to, like, rationing and damages and all of it. The second add-on I have planned is going to be likely called Mechapocalypse. I will make more videos on both add-ons in the future when I get around to making them, and you'll just have to come back and see. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, do the things, press the buttons. I will be coming out with more videos in the future. Not all of them are going to be about Skatepocalypse or even just about RPGs. I already have some Minecraft stuff recorded. You might even want to check me out on Twitch, because I will hopefully be streaming more often as well. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Which is... finish the first. What even is the process? What's happening? I also added... Now, moving to the current version, 1.4.4, I believe I limited it to only once per set. Ambulance... Fire truck? I don't know. And it's gone. There we go. That I just knew I could use this for everything, for all of the... That's so loud. Oh, oh my god. So I completely damaged the old weapon system. Damaged? What? What? What am I talking about? I'll do a little Milo Rossi title card thing. Moving on to chapter 2. I'm gonna drink some tea. It's gonna be so hot. Yeah, hot. Reoccurrent... keep turning into a goat. One of the characters, Keela Baby... Oh, God, it's so stupid. Put out the fire, and then leave on Tuna's... What am I doing?